Punishment by Group 12. Corporal punishment is a physical punishment against child's misbehavior and for means of discipline. It involves spanking, hitting with object that causes no significant injury. It is illegal in Washington state, but there are 19 states still allow it. Corporal punishment only has short-term effect on correcting immediate misbehavior. Then next. Physical punishment is a non-accidental harm to a child by caregiver, parent, or others who is responsible for the child. The difference between physical abuse and corporal punishment is that corporal punishment might not cause significant harm, and it becomes physical abuse when injury lasts more than 24 hours. And corporal punishment and physical abuse both involve spanking and hitting a child, and it also cause numerous harm to the child, which includes adverse childhood development. Next.
Corporal punishment is a common form of discipline in the household. It is currently legal in all 50 states for parents to use. It might take the form of slapping, hitting, spanking, pinching, forcing to eat soap, or hitting with the child with an object. The goal of corporal punishment by the parent is to discipline the child. Corporal punishment in schools, it's currently allowed in 19 states to be used in public school districts, and 48 states allow private schools to use corporal punishment as a form of discipline. The private schools are not required to report their incidents of corporal punishment, so it is difficult to monitor how frequently corporal punishment is used in the private schools. In the 2013 to 2014 school year, Mississippi had the highest rate of corporal punishment. Of the 271,987 students enrolled in Mississippi school districts that allow corporal punishment, 9.4% of those students were corporally punished. Arkansas follows with a rate of 7.5%, then Missouri with 6.1%, Alabama with 5.9%, and then Oklahoma with 5.6%. A testimony by Linda P., who is the mother of a daughter named Audrey. She testified against corporal punishment, and they were in the Webster County in Mississippi. It says that Audrey was hit with a paddle for being tardy to gym class and was hit with a paddle years later when she wore sweatpants to school, which broke the school's dress code. Her mother, Linda P., would later testify at a hearing for corporal punishment in 2010. Linda P. tells the Congressional Subcommittee in written form the following: "You could see the mark of the paddle across her buttocks. It never occurred to me that she could be injured from it. I thought she was safe in school." This is an example of how corporal punishment can end up hurting the child, even if that wasn't the intended use, and how it can also be used in ways that maybe there's another form of discipline that could better handle the situation. Allowing corporal punishment in school districts puts children of color at risk for facing discrimination. In the 2013 to 2014 school year, of the 110,000 students who were physically punished in schools, 40,000 of those students were Black students, even though Black students only made up 16% of the student population. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, in the 2013 to 2014 school year, Black boys were twice as likely to be struck than white boys, with a 14% rate versus 7.5%, and Black girls were more than 3 times as likely to be struck than white girls, with a 5.2% versus a 1.75% rate. Since the Black students only make up 16% of the population where corporal punishment is legal, the statistics should be more equal, but they are not. Allowing corporal punishment in school districts opens up the possibility of discrimination against the students of color. Next.
So corporal punishment can have a negative effect on a child. It can either be a short-term effect or a long-term effect. A short-term effect is immediate compliance towards a parent. Some long-term effects is a child can show aggression towards either themselves or to others. Antisocial behavior, which is a child being antisocial and doesn't want to interact with other people. Poor quality of relationship with a parent, so meaning that a child is too afraid of their parent to even like want to interact with them or even other adults because they are afraid that if they interact with them, then they might experience corporal punishment. Um, s- Mental health is also a long-term effect, which is like depression, anxiety, or suicidal thoughts. Some cognitive effects is one of them is social relationship, which other children. Um, sorry. A cognitive effect is social relationship with others, and it shows that a child who is showing anxiety about being punished, they are inhibited from exploring their physical and social worlds, which means that they are less likely to extend their cognitive skills. And also, with that, poor mental health can also lower cognitive ability and the academic achievement. And also, children are more likely to abuse their own children when they get older because that's all that they've known and like that's how they grew up with. So they think it's like normal. And they are more likely to have a criminal record. And like I said earlier, it also affects the child's self image in a classroom and their school achievements. Next.
Corporal punishment can have a significant side effect to children that are harmed. One of the more extreme examples is a case in Japan that led to a 10-year-old girl's death. As a punishment, her father would have her stand for long periods of time in order to learn her lesson for misbehaving. The school had knowledge of what was going on at home, but lacked communication with social services. Following this girl's death, Japan had implemented new laws surrounding corporal punishment within their homes. There are more guidelines with specific details on what types of discipline would be considered okay and what types would not. This case is just an example of the extreme, but it shows how corporal punishment can be taken too far. Next. Studies have shown that a level of corporal punishment done to a child holds negative mental health consequences, including depression. The parental anger that is shown during corporal punishment, known as angry corporal punishment, is the strongest predictor of depression. It also depends on the type of punishment that is being received and how often. If punishment is received daily and it is harsher than others, then the levels of depression will be more noticeable than those who received it rarely and not as harsh. With corporal punishment being a last resort option, consistency and parents being in control are thrown out the window. And those are two of the most important things in childhood development. So when you throw anger in there, it becomes a situation that can turn bad. Next.
So research has found many other methods of discipline that teachers and parents can use that are actually more effective on the child and also less to them. So when a child is anywhere between the age of birth through kindergarten, some or better discipline methods would be to reward their good behavior rather than punish their poor behavior. They can also be a role model for good behavior that the child can look up to. Parents and teachers can set limits and expectations for the child and also redirect a child's bad behavior instead of punishing them for that. And then timeouts are also pretty effective during this time frame. So for example, when a toddler throws a temper tantrum in a public space, the parent can then remove the child from that place of misbehavior, and until the child gains recontrol, then they can give short verbal instruction or reassurance to the child rather than using a form of corporal punishment in that situation. And then another example would be if a preschooler draws on the walls with crayons, maybe use a timeout to allow him or her to think about what they've done, or also take away the crayons as a way to show logical consequences and let the child clean up the mess for themselves. Next. When the child is a little bit older, when they're about elementary age, some good ideas for healthy discipline would be, again, praise good behavior, be a role model for that good behavior, set clear limits for the child, and then natural consequences is another good one, which just means letting the child experience the result of the bad behavior. So, for example, if a child destroys their toy, instead of just replacing that toy or using corporal punishment in this instance, let the child learn the logical consequence, which is that by destroying the toy, that they will no longer have toys to play with. And then another method is taking away privileges for that child. Next. As the child gets a little bit older, into upper childhood and adolescence, then again, role modeling good behavior for these children and setting clear expectations for them is effective, as well as natural consequences, which we talked about earlier. And then taking away privileges is also prevalent here. So, for example, if an adolescent defiantly takes a car and gets into an accident, then the logical consequence would be that there is no car for them to drive anymore, and that the teenager may have to help pay for the repairs. So again, it's just showing easy and effective methods to discipline the child, but without causing harmful effects to them in the long run. Next. And then these are our sources. Thank you.